Greetings to you and welcome to this episode of Grace Podcast. I'm Timothy Muse. I'll be your host as we spend this time together today. It's a joy to be with you. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for making this podcast a part of your journey. And as always, I want to thank you for being on the journey, for walking through it, for investing in yourself, for growing and expanding beyond where you are. That's never an indictment to say that where you are is bad. It's just a realization, the self-awareness to say that there's always places in our life that we can examine and grow. We can give energy to. So thank you for being here. Thank you for investing in you. I'm so pleased to be able to come alongside you, to walk with you in this time. It is a joy and a pleasure and a privilege to be able to offer this podcast. If it's helpful, please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. I post on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. If you follow me or the Life Coaching on any one of those feeds, you're going to see these episodes. If you're on one of the listening platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, then follow us, give us a rating and review. Every positive rating and review tells the platform people are listening, and you'll get a notification when a new episode comes out. And if you want to reach out to me directly, GraceLifeCoaching.com. I would love to hear from you. GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. You can get a hold of me, DM me, text me, message me, email me, however you communicate. That's where you can find me. I'd love to come alongside you, do some coaching, maybe if you want to do some Reiki or some sound bath or meditation, whatever it is that I can offer you. I would love to see how we can work together. So here we are on the final episode of our series on the power of rest and how important rest is. You know, and we've learned in every episode from the beginning, the different things about rest. Over those episodes, we've taken this journey together. And if this is the first time you're tuning in, then welcome aboard. If you've been on the journey this far, then thank you for staying here to the end. Today, we are going to discover something greater, how rest helps us live with greater purpose. How we build daily rhythms into renewal. Today isn't about learning something completely new. It's about bringing everything together. It's about bringing all of this together into one, because knowledge doesn't change our lives. Knowledge is important, but it doesn't change our lives. Practice does. The question has never been, do I need to know that rest is more important? Most of us already know that. The real question is, will I build a life that protects it? So let's spend our final moments together talking about what that life can look like. What life can we build that protects rest? Rest as a way of living. When many people hear the word rest, they think about something they do once they're completely exhausted. Maybe a weekend away or a vacation or a nap after a difficult day. And those things matter. They really do. They're really super important for life. But a rested life is much bigger than occasional recovery. A rested life is a different way of living. It's choosing a pace that allows you to enjoy your life while you're living it. All right? It refuses to believe that faster always means better. And it recognizes that your worth isn't measured by your productivity. Your worth is measured by your being, by your presence. Imagine two people. One spends years sprinting, collapsing, recovering, and repeating the cycle. The other walks steadily. They pause, they breathe, they recover, they continue. At the end of 20 years, who do you think has the strength to keep going? Not the sprinter, but the walker. Look, life is not a sprint, my friends. Life's not even a marathon. It's a lifetime. And lifetimes require sustainable rhythms. They require rhythms that we can sustain for the long haul. Because we don't want to use up our life before our life is used up, do we? We don't want to get to the point where we still have years left in the tank physically and biologically, but emotionally and mentally and psychologically, we're exhausted. And part of the way to do that, part of what we need to do is make sure that we redefine success. Success is huge. So let's talk about success. When you were younger, how did you imagine success? What did success look like? Maybe it was earning more money, or owning a home, or building a career, or finding the right relationships and raising a family, accomplishing great things. Now, those are awesome. Those are great goals. They're wonderful goals, and that's what we want. That's what we want to see. We want to see this happen. But as we grow, many of us begin to redefine success. Success becomes less about working late and more about having dinner with the people we love, sleeping peacefully, laughing, and laughing often, having meaningful conversations, being healthy enough to enjoy the ordinary moments, having time for our hobbies and the things that draw us into life outside of, just work and success, feeling content instead of constantly striving. Imagine reaching the end of your life. Look to the end, and not in some kind of morbid sort of way, not in some kind of, the day you die. That's not what I'm talking about. But imagine reaching the end of your life. Do you think that you'll wish you had answered a few more emails? Or do you think you'll remember conversations around the dinner table or with friends, or those quiet walks in the park, watching a sunrise, holding a grandchild, comforting a friend, celebrating milestones? Rest helps us remember what success actually looks like. And yes, there is a form of success that comes from advancement and growth and climbing the corporate ladder and buying the house and having the car. Those are all marks of success, but they're not the only marks of success. There need to be other marks as well, bigger marks, different marks that incorporate this idea of rest. And that's why we want to redefine success, not just to look at the bank account and the square footage of our house, but how we live our lives, the rhythms of our lives, the sustainable rhythms of our lives. Which really leads me to circle back to something I talked about before, and that's your calendar. There's an old saying, don't tell me what matters to you, show me your calendar. Show me your calendar. That's challenging, isn't it? Because the calendar doesn't lie. They reveal what consistently receives our attention. If rest never appears in your calendar, it probably won't appear in your life. If relationships never receive intentional time, then they're slowly going to weaken. If reflection is always postponed, clarity becomes difficult. Healthy people don't merely hope they'll have time. They decide, they protect it, they schedule it, they make it a priority. What would happen if your calendar reflected not only your responsibilities, but also your values? Time for yourself, time with family, time for health, time for quiet, time for learning, time for friendships, time for joy. These aren't luxuries, my friends. They're foundations. They're foundational to a healthy life that is sustainable and rhythmic through the long term. Can we have it all the time? No, we can't. But if we don't schedule it, if we don't make it a priority, we won't have it at all. Or we'll look for it when everything else is done, when everything else is accomplished, when we collapse at the end of the day, exhausted. We've all been there. We've all had day after day where we go and go and go. And by the time we finally get to that point where it's time to rest, we're just flat out done. We don't rest, we numb. We just kind of melt into whatever we're doing and we pass out exhausted. Well, that happens sometimes. That's just kind of the course of life. And I'm not saying that's something that you should never happen. It's going to happen in your life, but it shouldn't be the standard. It shouldn't be the standard. Rest isn't a luxury. Time for joy, time for learning, time for friends, time for health. That's not a luxury. That's foundational. We need to have that in our lives, because when we have that in our lives, we can have peace in our lives. And peace is something that we have to protect. One of the most important lessons that we can learn throughout this series, and we can learn about rest, is peace doesn't happen accidentally. We don't find peace and balance accidentally. It doesn't show up on a Saturday morning with a cup of coffee. It requires choice. When we're looking for peace and balance, when we want that in our lives, it requires choice. Sometimes difficult choices. You may have to say no to something. You may disappoint someone. You may choose a slower path than everyone around you. You may decide that another promotion isn't worth sacrificing your health. You may choose fewer commitments and more evenings at home with family, more walks, more laughter, less comparison, less hurry, less noise. Peace is expensive. It really, truly is. Not because it costs money, but because it requires intentionality. We can't be unintentional about our peace and expect it to show up. You have to protect it. You have to protect your peace because no one else is going to. And that's not to say that someone wants to see you out of peace. It's just that people are going to want things from you and your calendar and demands and requirements. If you don't protect your peace, no one else will. And you know what? It's okay to protect your peace. It really, truly is. That may sound selfish. And there are times when we do need to be a little selfish. Selfish is given us a bad word because, it's used in not sharing our toys or what have you. But we need to be a little selfish. We need to protect our own peace. We need to protect our own health. Not everything deserves access to your attention. Not everything deserves access to your emotional and psychological well-being. Not everything deserves access to you. It is okay to protect your peace. It is actually necessary to protect your peace. And once we start actively and intentionally protecting our peace, we start to realize that life happens not just in the big moments, but in the ordinary moments. All right? Not just in the vacation that's going to come up in 6 months, not just in the big celebrations. Life is happening now. Life isn't waiting somewhere in the future. Life is happening now, right now, in this ordinary day. We often think happiness is waiting for us. You know, after that promotion, after that retirement, after the kids grow up, after the mortgage is paid, after life becomes easier, after we get on vacation, after we get away for the weekend. And those things are great, but life keeps moving, my friends. And ordinary life is so powerful. Children grow and parents age and seasons change and years pass. And yes, some of those things are difficult. And we have to face those transition and changes, but we don't want to wait for life to happen in some future reality. Life happens in the ordinary moments now, and we can see them more deeply when we are at peace and balance, when we protect our peace, when we protect our rest. We can dwell in these moments of life now, because one day you may realize the moments that you thought were ordinary were actually the most extraordinary moments. Those simple little conversations, that walk around the backyard, that planting the tomato plants, the things that we just do every day. Those are the extraordinary moments, okay? The conversations we have, the laughter, even the quiet. Rest teaches us to stop postponing joy, to find joy in all of these little moments. It doesn't have to be, dancing in the rain joy, but to find joy in every one of these moments. Life keeps happening, and life happens around us every day. And really, quite frankly, most of the life that we live is lived in those ordinary moments. So if we're looking for peace and balance and to live the most of our lives, then we want to find the joy and the rest in each of these moments, because they're going to happen over and over and over again. So why not seek out and intentionally find joy and peace in the things we do every day? Everyday, ordinary life has its continual joys and celebrations, even if they're small, even if they're minor. My day begins with a red eye. I have a cup of coffee with a shot of espresso in it, and there is profound joy in that first sip of that cup of coffee every day. It's fresh, it's hot, it's bold, and there's joy in that. Now, most people just, want to chug it down so they can wake up. And yeah, I want to do that too. But there's joy in that one little moment, that grounded everyday moment, when we can see the joy in ordinary life, and we find that through peace and balance. Then we can find joy everywhere. Again, it doesn't have to be huge, but it's there. When we can see it, when we find peace and balance in it. So the question comes down to this: what will you carry forward? Now what? I mean, we've been journeying through this. We've been looking at all these different things, and information is helpful, but transformation requires action. So where do you go from here? What does rest become for you in this? Let me ask you, what have you learned about yourself while you've been listening to these episodes? Have you realized you're carrying too much, maybe? Or you discover you need stronger boundaries? Do you need more sleep, more laughter, more silence, more time with people you love, more time outdoors? Maybe more forgiveness or more gratitude? Look, what have you learned? What are you seeing in yourself? Don't try to change everything. You can't change everything. It's not sustainable. Change one thing, one little thing. Master one little habit, then another. I've said many times, something we've repeated throughout this series and in most of the podcast: small changes repeated consistently create remarkable lives. You don't need to change everything overnight. Do one small thing. Do it consistently over a period of time. See how your life changes in the midst of that. Don't try to change it all. Self-awareness is important. We get this knowledge. We ask these questions. We look into our places and realize, yeah, you know what? I need more silence in my life. I need more time when my brain can just be free to think. Then make it a habit. 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Turn off the radio while you're driving to work. Turn off the phone while you're in the shower. Allow silence to penetrate your lives. Maybe you're carrying a pain that needs forgiveness over. Maybe you just need to let it go. And, when I talk about forgiveness is important because forgiveness doesn't mean that you're saying what was done to you is wrong. It just means you're not going to carry that energy anymore. Even if the other person doesn't ask for it, it's getting free space in your brain while that pain manipulates and grows. Forgiveness is the opportunity to let it go. Let go of the energy of it. You hold the memory, and probably never going to let that happen again, but let go of the memory of it. Let go of what is not yours to carry. What have you learned about yourself? What's one thing that you can bring into your life? What's one small change that you can do? So rather than giving you a challenge, I'm going to give you a longer challenge, one final exercise here. I'm going to encourage you to write a rest manifesto. Rest manifesto. Have you ever written a manifesto about yourself before? Manifestos are great. They really are. They're really important. Take out a journal or a notebook or open a blank document on your computer and complete these sentences, these statements. I believe rest is ... I will no longer believe ... I give myself permission to ... The people I want to become for are ... The rhythms I want to protect. When I notice burnout, I will. The kind of life I want to build is. Don't write what sounds impressive. Don't write what you want someone else to read. Write what is true. This isn't for social media. This isn't for anybody else. It's a promise to yourself. A reminder of who you want to become. Look, you're not going to become who you want to be unless you map it out, identify it. Start to answer the hard questions. Start to confront your own beliefs and your own ideas and your own upbringings. This is your roadmap. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. If you continue living exactly as you are today, will your future self thank you, or will they wish you had slowed down? What habits do you hope define your life? What memories do you hope you're creating today? Who needs the healthiest version of you? And perhaps the most important question of all that I want to leave with you, what would change you if you truly believed you don't have to earn your worth? You don't have to earn your worth. Sit with that question. Be reminded of that question. You don't have to earn your worth. You're worthy. You're worthy because you exist. You're worthy because you're part of this beautiful human community. You don't have to earn your worth. You're worthy. Sit with that question. Let it dwell with you. It may change more than you expect. What would change if you truly believed you didn't have to earn your worth? That's a powerful thing, my friends. That's a powerful thing. As we come to the end of this series, I'd like to leave you with one final story. Imagine walking through a forest. You notice two trees standing side by side. One tree has grown quickly. Its branches stretch high into the sky, but its roots are shallow. The other tree has grown more slowly. Its roots have reached deep into the earth. Then a storm arrives, strong winds, heavy rain. The first tree struggles. The second tree bends, but it doesn't break. Why? Because what gives it strength wasn't what everybody could see. It was what had been quietly growing beneath the surface. Rest is like those roots. No one applauds it. No one posts pictures of it. No one celebrates an afternoon spent doing nothing. But rest quietly strengthens everything else in your life, your work, your relationships, your health, your creativity, your leadership, your purpose, your joy. You don't become your best self by constantly pushing harder. You become your best self by learning when to work and when to rest. And I hope that this series has given you more than information. I hope it's given you permission. Permission to slow down, permission to breathe, permission to choose presence over pressure, permission to value peace over performance, permission to build a life that is not measured only by achievements, but by love, by joy, by kindness, by purpose, and by the quiet confidence that comes from living in balance. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you for coming alongside of me. Remember, rest is not a reward for a well-lived life. Rest is one of the ways a well-lived life is created. So take care of yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Protect your peace. Live with intention and never forget. The world doesn't need a more exhausted version of you. It needs the healthiest, most present, most hopeful version of you. That's what I got for you, my friends. I hope this is helpful. If it is, please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. If you're on one of the listening platforms, then do what the listening platforms can do so you get notifications and other people will see it. And if you want to reach out to me directly, gracelifecoaching.com is the website. At Grace Life Coaching, we want you to be the best you.